Star Wars Character Creation Day coming up. Get your shit together right here. First of all, if you're not familiar with Fantasy Flight's Star Wars role-playing game, get the fuck out. So anytime I create a character for a role-playing game, I think of it in terms of two major facets. Who they are, personality, backstory, and that sort of thing, and what they are, species, talents, skills, and abilities. The role-playing and the game, if you will, and this system has game mechanics for both. For who they are, we got motivation and obligation, or duty, or morality, or some combination thereof. It's a little complicated, we'll come back to it. And for what they are, we got species, career, and specializations. Okay, technically things like species and career can be who they are as well, but get off my ass. So, motivation is just what drives your character. It's actually kind of, it's silly. I mean, there's suggestions and tables to roll on for what this actually means and what it means for your character. Really, it's just an official way of saying, actually try thinking about your character for once. That's it. You know, I run a solo campaign, I don't even know what the dude's motivation is. No fucking clue. Gun to my head, I could not tell you what his character's motivation is. But I know what his character likes and dislikes, and who he cares about, what drives him. But I don't know his official motivation. But I know all that stuff, and I know how to use that to manipulate him for shits and giggles, which is really all GMing is about, you know? Then we have obligation / duty / morality, which are these optional rules, each from the different sets of books. You know what? I'm not going to even explain them. Your GM is going to pick one, or sometimes a combination of two, to use for your campaign. And really all you need to know is that it's an opportunity for you to actually get some more points, or perhaps credits, with which to build your character. So, cut to GM explaining it. Okay, so when you pick your species, you'll get a set of primary and secondary characteristics. You also get various racial bonuses, which could be anything from a free rank in a skill or talent to something more unique like the Transition's regenerating ability or the Quarren's ability to spit ink. And finally, you'll get a chunk of starting experience points. Unlike in many other RPGs, there's no earning points so that you can level up and then get new skills, talents, or abilities. You merely earn points and then spend those directly on your skills, talents, and abilities. They basically just cut out the middleman. Now, while it's true that every species tends to be well-suited for some playstyles and not so much for others, it really doesn't matter that much. At least not as much as it would in, say, Dungeons & Dragons. You know, in D&D, if you want to make a gnome barbarian, you can, but it's going to be a bit of an uphill climb. If you want to make a Twi'lek marauder, you know, a melee fighter, on paper, looks like shit, but it's pretty easy to get over that little hurdle and have a pretty good character. In fact, what I like doing, I like picking species that aren't well-suited for the thing I want them to be good at. Like, if I want a really good melee fighter, I'm not going to pick a Wookiee or a Transition, because that's f***ing boring. I'm going to pick a Twi'lek because they're really good at talking, just naturally. And they can be good at talking, and I don't have to do a damn thing about it. He's going to be good at talking, or at least pretty solid. And I can put effort into making him really good at punching people to death. So now I got a Twi'lek who's really good at punching people to death, and pretty good at talking, and really no actual weaknesses, because I made his biggest weakness his biggest strength. Speaking of playstyles, one thing I love most about this game is just how much support there is for playing a, well, support character. Now, it's Star Wars, so of course there's plenty of combat options, but you also could play a dedicated healer, pilot, talker, techie, survivalist, buyer and seller of cool and less cool things, respectively, or even a knowledge guy. You can, and pretty much any combination of the above that you want. Here's how it works. First, you pick your career, which is kind of like your character class, and your career will give you a big group of career skills, which, just like the class skills in some other games, will be cheaper for you to upgrade. For example, bounty hunters tend to have a knack for flying, shooting, navigating the criminal underworld, so they get career skills that reflect all that. Also, half of these will get a free rank, so you can already start customizing and tweaking your guy a little bit. Picking your career will also give you access to 3 specializations, which is a talent tree and 4 more career skills. And this talent tree will play the single biggest part in determining your capabilities and role within the group. You can also spend experience points on additional specializations to further customize your character, and it doesn't even have to be from your career. So a smuggler career pilot specialization might eventually decide they want to be as good at fixing the ship as they are flying it, so they buy the mechanic specialization from the technician career. So everyone can spend their points on these, and if you're force sensitive, also on these, but we'll get into that later. When you're spending points at character creation, it's a pretty good rule of thumb to spend most, if not all, of your points on your characteristics, and that's for two reasons. Number one, they're incredibly powerful. In my video on the dice system for this game, I talk about how the green and yellow die represent how good you are in a particular skill. So when you have to roll a check, you'll grab that dice pool, and then the GM piles on some more crap. Well, the way you figure out that starting dice pool is you look at two numbers. The characteristic which influences that skill, and the number of ranks you have in that particular skill. Of those two numbers, the highest, whichever one it is, determines how many green dice you get for that skill. And the lowest number, whichever one that is, will then upgrade that many greens into the more powerful yellow die. So let's say you want to figure out your starting dice pool for the astrogation skill. By the way, this is the last step of character creation, so you want to make sure that you have your characteristics and your skill ranks all figured out before you do this. So let's say I have a 3 in intellect, and I have 1 skill rank in astrogation. My highest number is 3, so we have 3 green die, and my lowest number is 1, so one of those green die will be upgraded into a yellow. So every time my character rolls an astrogation check, I'll grab 1 yellow and 2 green. Now remember, it's based off the highest and lowest numbers. So if we instead had 1 intellect, but 3 ranks in astrogation, our dice pool would still be the same. But more often than not, especially early on, the characteristic will be the higher one. It'll have a huge impact because it's on every skill that characteristic influences. The second reason you probably want to focus on upgrading your characteristics at character creation is, this is pretty much the only time you can really do it. You can upgrade your characteristics a little bit after the fact with expensive cybernetics, or if you purchase the dedication talent, which you can find at the bottom of nearly every specialization's talent tree, but both of these options are pretty time consuming and expensive, so for the most part, this is where you're going to upgrade your characteristics. Okay, so eventually you'll find yourself saying something like, wow, I have a 2 brawn. Is that good? What does that mean? Am I buff? Anyone? Am I buff? Am I Schwarzenegger 30 years ago or Schwarzenegger now? What's going on? What's a 2 mean? Is that good? Okay, so your average adult human starts off with 2s across the board in each of the 6 main characteristics. That's our baseline average person in the galaxy. But we're not playing an average person in the galaxy, we're playing a badass. And when you're assigning characteristics to your badass, there's 2 basic builds that I would recommend trying, at least at first. Or, at the very least, this should give you some idea of what the numbers mean. There's what I call the Jack of all trades and the Specialist. The Jack of all trades will have a 3 in 4 of the 6 characteristics. They'll be rolling a minimum of 3 greens in a large majority of the skills, which means they'll be at least slightly above average in almost everything. That, combined with the free skill ranks everyone gets, will make you a nice well-rounded character, able to provide support or fill in almost any situation your group is lacking in. But odds are you won't be great at anything, at least not for a while. The other build is what I call the Specialist. They'll have a 4 in their most important stat, and at least 1 3 in their second most important. This is the build I think of when I think of most RPG characters. You know, they're part of a team, specialized in a particular area, they have a role to fill, and they're probably the best person on the team in that role. You know, if you want to be the pilot, the talker, the medic, the mechanic, the damage dealer, put a 4 in your most important characteristic for that role, and then put a 3 in your second most important. That way you could easily have a great pilot who's also a decent talker, or a scholar who knows how to handle a gun. The game allows you to have a very specialized focused character, but not too specialized. You know, you're not gimping yourself, but you can still be the big badass gun guy. You could go totally apeshit and put a 5 in something, but to be honest, that's not actually as fun as it sounds. It's pretty boring. But again, this is just to put the numbers into perspective, especially because your talent tree will also have a huge impact on how you play. And when you realize that some species and careers and talent trees can be really well-rounded or really specialized, you can really adjust those and fine-tune your character in a lot of creative ways. Let's say I want to build a human smuggler. Between the human's base stats and smuggler's career skills, I got a pretty well-rounded character so far. Now I can embrace that philosophy and pick a specialization like scoundrel, or thief, or gambler, whose talent trees are made in such a way that I can stay really well balanced. Or I could pick the gunslinger, a total pistol-wielding ranged combat character. But, with the species and smuggler's core career skills and characteristics, I still have plenty of bases covered. I'm not too specialized. Or, I could make my character even more specialized towards combat by picking a different species with a naturally high agility. Or adjusting his characteristics to be more specialized. Or if we want to get really creative, we could recognize that while yes, agility is important for a gunslinger and pew-pew and all that damage and shit, they already have an entire talent tree and a career skill to help in that area, and a whole campaign to work on those. But, because it's so specialized, this is the best opportunity to round us out and focus on other areas. The smuggler gets 4 cunning-based skills as career skills, but no talents to help with that. So how about we give him a 4 in his second most important stat to us, cunning, and only a 3 in his most important stat, agility. All these cunning skills will have at least 4 green, maybe 3 green and the yellow, and we really won't have to work on them all that much. Okay, so picking our motivation and obligation / duty / whatever will help solidify who this person is in our head, background and all that. Once we do that, write it in, along with our species and everything it gives us. Primary characteristics, secondary characteristics, any free ranks or talents we get, then we fill in our career and career skills. Remember, half of these will get a free rank and you need to pick those now. Then we pick our specialization, add in more career skills, some might be doubles, some not, either way, half of these will also get a free rank. So it's possible to double up on free skill ranks, and it's a good idea if you can, because every skill rank is more expensive. So that second free rank on a skill will give you more bang for your buck. However, no skill can go beyond rank 2 at character creation. So if your species, career, and specialization each give you a free rank in a particular skill, you have to fill in the 1 from your species, and then decide if you want a free rank from your career, or from your specialization, or neither, but not both. And finally, we can spend our points. Like I said, focusing on characteristics is not a bad idea, but not mandatory. We're done here. You can fuck off now.